Hey guys, so welcome to my channel. So in this video we are going to learn about list functions. So let's get started. So before learning about list functions, let's know what is the functions are. Like, what does it do? So in general we have to define a function. So what is a function? So in function there are written some set of codes which you can reuse every time whenever you want. Like sometimes there is a long code which is being reused everywhere in your programs, but the thing is that it is being so much used that you have to write it often everywhere. So what do is you define it as a function, and then you just instead of writing the whole code, you just call that function whenever you want. So how can we do that? So that you have to type def and then function name, like I will write my fun, and then I would pass an argument. So then what I would do is I would return something like n star n. So what does it did? Well, here you can see def. Def is a keyword in Python which is used to define a function, and then my fun. It is just a arbitrarily chosen name by me, and then in bracket you can put parameters. Well, what are the parameters? Well, you want to do some kind of operation with certain values, so we have to put those values inside the parameters, inside this bracket. And when you are defining the function, all the variables that are in your bracket are called parameters. So now let's call it something like x is equals to my fun, and then 2. Now if I will run it, so what will it give? Here it gave me 4 because I have asked him to return n star n, which means n square. Well, while you are defining a function, there is return keyword. What it will do is, whenever you will assign any variable to a function in your code, so the return value, so the return keyword will return whatever you assign it here after return. So for example, when I assigned x is equals to my fun 2, so after all the calculations, what it did is it returned whatever the value I put it here. So when I put n star n, that is 2 into 2, so x simply became 4. And when I printed x, so you got value of 4. So that's all about functions. And one thing to remember, that when I am calling the functions, here I am actually calling the function, and here I am defining the function. So when I am defining the function, then all the contents in the brackets are called parameters, and when I am calling the functions, all the contents in the bracket are called arguments. Well, this was the basic introduction of functions. Now let's move on to the list functions. Well, in Python, there are predefined functions which you can use to make your life easy. So let's get started. So the first function is remove function. So what does it do is, it will remove any element in a list whichever you will put in your argument of function. So for example, here you can see an example code. If I will copy and paste it here, and now if I run this, so what does it did? Well, it first printed a list of something like which contains 1, 2, 3, then 4, 4, then 5, 1, 2. In the second list, what does it did? It removed 44. How? Because I used remove function and then I passed 44 as argument. So it simply removed 44. Well, one thing to notice is that the remove function will remove the first occurrence of any element. For example, if I put another 44 here, so what it will do? So it will just remove this one, the backside, not the next coming 44. So if I run Python, and then you can see that what it did is it removed 44, which was first time occurring, but not the 44 that occurred second time. Well, for removing that too, you can simply type another time a.remove and print a. So if I would do this, so what are you going to see? So you can see here that it first time removed first 44, then in second time it removed second 44 too, and now we have only 1, 2, 3 and 5, 1, 2 as our list elements. So that's all about remove function. And one thing to note is that whenever you will use remove and you don't pass any argument, so it will give you error. So for example, if I do something like I remove this, and now if I run the code, so what will it do? It gives me an error message. So keep this thing in mind that you should pass at least one argument in remove. So that's all about remove. Now let's move on. Now next we have pop function. What does it do is instead of looking of elements that are there in the list, pop function will pop out any element according to its index. So in remove function you used to mention the element itself, but in pop function you will mention its index. So here is an example code which I will write to show you. So what it will do is it will pop index of 1, like here 1, 2, 3 is at index 0, then 44 is at index 1 and 5, 1, 2 is at index 2. So when I say pop 1, so it will remove 44 because it is at index 1. And suppose if I have one, if I don't do it, like first let's run the code. So here you can see it had removed 44. Now suppose if I don't pass any argument here, so what do you think what it will do? Well, this time this function won't show any error. You can just simply run it, and what it does it did is it removed the last element of the list. So that's how pop function works. Either you will mention any kind of like any index, or you won't mention it. If you would mention the index, so it will remove the element that is mentioned in that index, or otherwise it will remove the last element. Well, now we don't have any function, we have a keyword named del. So what it will do is it will also remove the function, I mean the element. So let's run it first. Here you can see it has deleted the element that I have mentioned. But what does the del function, del keyword do is it can remove something like any variable, like if I do something like del a, so what it will do is it will completely destroy this variable named a, and it won't exist anymore in your program. So if I would again print a, so it should give me error that it is not defined. So if I run the code, so here you can see it is a is not defined. Why? Because I have used del keyword and it simply deleted my variable. Well, where it is used? Well, suppose you are defining a lot of variable and doing a lot of stuff with it, so it can consume a lot of memory. So it can be used to do a little bit memory management, where you use some kind of variables and in further in programs you don't need it, so you delete it, and that's how you use your del keyword. And next is clear functions. Well, what does it do? Well, it is something like a master of all the deleting functions. Well, suppose you want to completely clear all the list, so you can use it. So if I would write a dot clear, then I would say print a, so you won't see any kind of element. So here you can see in the next line it is completely blank. Why? Because I have used clear keyword and clear function, and what does it do is it removes all the elements in the list and it gives you just an empty list. So that's how clear function works. Well, now next is append function. Well, this function is different. What it will do, it won't remove things, it is gonna add things. So how? So if I do something like I run this code and then here you can see like what does it did is it added an element whichever I mentioned in append function argument at last of the list. So simply when I said a.append in bracket 1 to 3, so it added 1 to 3 at the last position of the list, and that's how append function works. Well, that's all append function do. But suppose sometimes you want to put your element in a specific position, so how would you do that? So here is insert function which will help you to do that. So this is the basic format of syntax of index insert function, where you tell about the index and the element. So how would you use index function? So for that, let me copy this code and run it here. So what it will do is it will insert an element 44 at position 1, which is index 1. So if I will run this code, so here you can see it had added 44. For more clearance, I will use another function, something like 30. So if I run the code again, so you can see it is inserting at the provided index in your function. So that's how insert function works. Here you can use simply, you can mention the index and the element and it will put your element in that index. Now we have something new in list. This is list comprehension. So suppose you want to make some kind of list. So what you would do? Either you would manually define it like a is equals to 1, 2, 3, that is what we are doing here in this line, or you would use some kind of for loop or while loop to do it, and how much it at least costs something like 4 to 3 lines to make it. Like in first line you would define something like a list, and then in second line you will write something like for I in range, and then you will do something like this, and then you will do a dot append I. So what it will do? Well, it will make a list of whatever I have written the code here. So if I will run it, so here I have got a list, but we can do it more quickly in a single line. Like, why do I need to do all this in something like 4 lines? I mean 3 lines. So here I can do it in just a line, a single line, like a equals to x for x in range 10, and then I print a. So here you can see I have got the same thing but in a single line, and not only that, you can do something like you can make it square. Like if I will do something like this, now this time I will get elements in square form. So here you can see, instead of getting simply 1 2 3, I have got 1 4 9, something like this. And you can do a lot of manipulation with it, something like, for example, I can even use if statements, like if I use if x percentage 2 equals to 0, then only it should add it. So now here you can see the list has got a little bit smaller. It is containing only even elements. Why? Because I have added another condition in which it is saying, it is checking if it is divisible by 2 or not. If it is not, so it won't add that element in the list, and that's how this thing works. Yes, it is called list comparison, and we can do a lot of stuff with it. And now you can also make a list from already existing list. Like suppose we had something like this kind of list, and now we want to make another list, so we would write b equals to x for x in a, and then we can do some kind of manipulation here, like we can add something like 2 into x, and then I will print it here. So what we are going to get here, you can see what I've got is I have got all the elements which multiplied by 2, like 0 into 2 it was 0, then 1 into 2 it was 2, then 2 into 2 turns to 4, and 3 into 2 turns 6, and so on. So that's how list comprehension works. And I have some exercises for you. Here what you have to do is you have to use this list and make another list using list comparison. And how you have to make list, like you have to use each element of this list, and first you have to square it, then you have to minus it by 1. For example, if I have 4 as element in the list, so it should first square it, which will be turned into 16, then decrease it by 1 and turn it 15. Then you add this element into the list, and you have to do same operations for all the elements in the list which is contained here, and you have to make another list b, and you have to print it in your program. So I hope you can do it, and that's all for this video, and I will see you next time.